As most of you are aware, I'm recording this on Wednesday, the 2nd of July, 11:52 p.m. For those of you that are aware that have been keeping in tune with the news, you may have heard that Diddy has been found not guilty on essentially the most important charges. So I think he got found not guilty of three of the five, sorry. The other two are relating to prostitution. But in terms of the Rico, the massive Rico, the Rico that you always hear on the internet, you always hear people say, oh, the Rico, when the feds come after you, they've got a 98% conviction rate or maybe higher. Especially, I've heard or read online from other people that allegedly the New York courts are even more stricter. When those feds come at you, it's really, really, really locked, sealed, and loaded when it comes to getting a conviction. But in this very, very rare case, Diddy got off scot-free on the charges that matter. He's probably still going to do some jail time. He's probably going to do some prison time in the end of it, you're assuming. Or maybe not actually, because he's been in there for kind of under a year now, right? It's probably been about 10, 11 months since everything transpired. Maybe he can get time served, you never know. But it's looking like any kind of life sentence, any double-digit sentence is off the table, out of the picture. And I'll be covering a lot of that later on in the pod. But that's the initial kind of feelings or initial kind of thoughts out there on the interwebs, for those of you that haven't been glued to it. I kind of lost interest, I think, in the middle of the court case, not because it wasn't interesting, but just because it was too heartbreaking. You know, some of the accounts, some of the detailing, some of the stories, especially around it, not even all the confessions, not even all testimony, sorry, in court. I think some of the conversations around Diddy from other people who were associated with him, you know, about what went on behind the scenes was a little bit disturbing and unsettling, especially when you think about the amount of people who were involved who never really got exposed. I never really saw that happening. So this is twice now. The Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell black book of people that never got released, or it's never probably going to get released now, especially after what Elon said about allegedly Donald Trump being on the list. That's why he hasn't released it. But that's probably never going to get released. And off the back of that, this Diddy black book of people who attended the free cops never got released either. So there's something going on. There's something remiss. There's something remiss with these people and these kind of clandestine, I don't know, escapades. It's kind of heartbreaking. And I'd imagine it would be even more heartbreaking if I probably had, like, because I don't really have female relatives, really, apart from my mum. I don't really have sisters or anything, or daughters, which is weird to say that would make you feel it a little bit more, but I think it probably would. So if I'm feeling bad about this type of situation now, looking from the outside in and thinking about all the people who've kind of been, you know, used, stepped on and stuff and abused and ditched and whatnot, it's kind of distressing. But to be fair, when you did look at the case, what you saw from the testimony was a lot of willing participants. If you really took the emotion out of the Cassie thing to one side, right? You put the emotion and the visceral fucking feeling you get when you see the video of Diddy beating up Cassie. If you put that to one side, a lot of the people who were confessing essentially were saying that there was a lot of willing participants. It seemed like it didn't seem like Diddy was putting anyone under any duress. There might have been some, you know, encouragement, coaxing, whatever it may be called. We call it in London here twanging, but it didn't seem like he was holding anybody at gunpoint to suck anybody off or to spread themselves. You know, everybody was a willing participant. Everybody got paid. I don't think I heard one person say they never got paid. Which is a really minor detail, but I think it matters in these type of things. Not one assistant, not one intern, not one associate or staff member of Bad Boy or Revolt or anyone who got brought up to speak or to testify against him spoke of him being a bad boss either. That was another interesting point. I don't think I heard one person say he was a bad boss. If anything, everybody said he was very inspiring, very motivating. If anything, he created this atmosphere. From what I was reading, from what I remember seeing, he created an atmosphere in the workplace, which I think is kind of hard to do, because I think a lot of startup founders try and do it, but it doesn't necessarily work. Because I've worked in a bunch of startups. That's kind of been my main experience in the working in the career field or whatever, working in Tria. And most startups I've worked for, a lot of founders will try and make you care a lot about what they're doing, right? About the product or service. They want you to feel like it's a family, feel like this is your thing. They might even give you equity to kind of make you feel more invested. But they really want you to care. And they really want you to put like the effort in. aside of them asking. So if it's a 9 to 5, they want you to stay 9 to 8, 9 to 10 voluntarily because you love the company so much. And it's really hard to foster, it's really hard to cultivate that kind of feeling, right? It's really hard to do that collective feeling that you're all kind of aiming to the right direction. You're aiming to one direction, one goal. Maybe the one place I did kind of feel that was maybe at Mastered, but I joined Mastered early on. I was maybe the 30th hire or something when I was at Mastered, that online learning course that which is where I got to meet Virgil, RIP. I think I joined there and I was maybe the 30th, 50th employee, let's say around that kind of mark. So, and they went on to have like over 100 employees towards the end. And that was one of the places where you kind of felt this collective thing of we're all aiming for one goal. But with Diddy, he was able to do it with all his various businesses. And I got the feeling a lot of these ex-employees were competing for Diddy's love. Were competing for his approval. Were competing for his attention. They wanted to really prove that they were willing to risk it all. And I wonder if it had to do with that, or if it had to do a little bit with that show that he was on, that reality TV show, Making the Band. I wonder if that legend of him pushing people to their edge, making people walk however many miles it was to pick up that cake, you know, really questioning and challenging them of how much they really wanted to be an artist, what they're willing to sacrifice to be an artist. Like, I wonder if all those things kind of played a role in people's, you know, mindset when they went to work with Diddy, so that they went in there were like, okay, cool, if I was on that show, I would have done X, Y, and Z. So then when they start working for Diddy on day one, boom, they want to show and prove. But that's what I kind of got. I kind of got that feeling from the girls that he was involved with. I got the feeling as well he treated them pretty nicely, given their weird relationship and the power dynamics that was going on there. Everyone seemed like they got paid. But, you know, there's no denying he really fucked over Cassie. Probably irreversibly so. That's sort of like abuse, that sort of experience you don't really, I don't think, ever get over. You'll learn to kind of maybe deal with it, but I don't think you can ever move past it. I think that's something that's going to live with her forever and ever. And I think of all the people who testified against Diddy, I think she's the most deserving of justice and that money that she got. She didn't probably get the justice that she probably wanted. There has to be, you know, maybe some, I would argue, I don't really know why she testified, to be fair. After exposing him, after getting the money, I don't really see what testifying would have done. I would have probably stayed out of it if I was her, but maybe she wanted to put a face to the case. Maybe she also hoped, maybe they also hoped that if she put herself forward, that a lot of other victims will come forward. But after that, it really wasn't a lot of victims. They're trying to make it seem like it was this big deal, this big thing that he was running, big operation. But at the end of it, it was just 2 victims, right? I think it was Cassie and Jane Doe. There wasn't really, or maybe one more, 3, which wasn't, you know, they're trying to make it seem like Diddy was running this elaborate worldwide flipping sex ring, when in reality it seemed like he had a couple concubines, maybe a few more than that, who he was kind of, you know, pushing to their limits, but they were more than game for it, because one of them, especially the Jane Doe, she was happy because she didn't want to work. That's something that I got from it too. I got from it that, God almighty, man, a lot of women out there, especially in America, a lot of women with that fast life, they don't want to work, man. And it kind of reminded me a little bit. Do you remember that quote? I think Ye is the one that shared it about Amber Rose. When Ye and Amber Rose were together, I think he must have mentioned in the interview or something like, Amber's never going back to Philly. I remember Amber telling me something like the thing that she's seen, she would never want her worst enemy to see or go through. And she's going to do everything in her power to make sure she never goes back to Philly. I think this might have been at the time she was dealing with Ye, and maybe she broke up with Ye, and maybe she thought, oh shit, now I broke up with Ye, everything's gone because everybody knows me as this Ye's woman, right? And I'm just kind of making my own name, but I've not really established myself yet. So I remember Ye saying something similar to that, like, you know, she's determined to never go back to Philly. And to be fair to her, she's never gone back to Philly, you know, metaphorically speaking. She's always kind of like elevated, gone up and up, you know, had a couple baby daddies and shit, prominent ones, established herself in her own regard, pushed certain things. Now she's in the kind of Republican arc that she's in. But I think there is something about the American experience, maybe it's a lack of healthcare or something, that really makes certain people so determined to never go back where they came from. Or just some people to be like, hey, I've had a taste of the good life. I've had a taste of the American dream. I've had a taste of living the high life. I don't ever want to go back. And that Jane Doe is a good example of it. Like, she was determined to like live this lifestyle of $10,000, $5,000 per month apartments and shit, condos, nice cars, lavish things, fine dining. And if it meant getting smarted out by Diddy, if it meant being degraded, if it meant being, placed in the middle of an orgy, so be it, And that was a very eye-opening thing of seeing, oh wow, there's a lot of women out here who definitely have a intrinsic or maybe intrinsic price. I'm not sure. I wonder if a lot of these hot girls out there know this though, subconsciously, or they even get offers. I wonder if a lot of IG baddies and hot girls know subconsciously that they all have a number. I wonder if that's even a thing for guys that exist in that world. That Miami, LA, New York, what you call it? I don't know what. Turks and Caicos, that kind of world of people, the people that go to Mr. Nice Guy, right? Those type of restaurants that don't have cameras and shit, like or the other restaurant that Rihanna loves to go to that she eats all her pasta in LA. I wonder if that kind of scene of person, girls, I wonder if they all have a price. I wonder if they all know that they have a price. I wonder if they're aware of it, that there are men out there looking at their profile thinking, okay, once I get up, once I make it, once I figure it out, I'm going to DM this person an offer and I'm going to smash. I wonder if they actually know that, because that's kind of got with the feeling that I got from the Diddy thing. He didn't really, I don't feel like he valued his intercourse with these women at all. I don't think it's a bad thing personally. Everyone just kind of gets their rocks off a certain way. But I think he definitely made sure to compensate them and made it very clear what he wanted from that compensation. They delivered. Some of them, maybe fell short here and there, but for the most part, they delivered, and it went on from there. But again, troubling to read and to go through. Really odd as well to see people celebrating the verdicts. I'm not going to lie. People celebrating the verdicts has been very, very bizarre, especially some of the people celebrating outside of court. You had some people like pouring baby oil on each other, like screaming. It's like, bro, you do know Diddy would never associate with you people, right? These people who are like, taking the Diddy case and making it personal and trying to basically say that, oh yeah, this is a death of cancel culture, believe a woman is this type, bro. Unless you've personally gone through something like this, I don't see how this relates to you. And the weird thing is, Diddy is this is a suave, sophisticated individual. Maybe he's into some degenerate shit, but he's of a certain standing. He's not going to want to associate with some of these ragamuffins outside the court. He's not going to want to associate with them at all. So I found their response to the verdict very odd, very strange. So, but I guess, he's a big celebrity. People are going to have very strange responses to that. So that is what that is. But yeah, man, hopefully people get their rest. Hopefully people, have their closure now going forward. I wonder what the prosecution is going to do now, because, this is incredibly embarrassing. Diddy fucking beat a Rico, like legitimately beat a Rico when all the chips were set against him, or stacked up against him, sorry. The video came out, all the stories from other people. But as soon as I started to see how the court case was going and I started to read certain things, I already said, I think I made a comment on some Instagram page and I was getting a lot of hate for it. My notifications were going up, were on fire. But I basically said, I think he's going to walk. I think there's a lot of troubling things in this court case regarding Cassie and her treatment, but I think overall with what they charged him with, like, they overcooked it. They overcooked it, man. They put too much on the plate, too much on the plate. And I think he's gonna get off. In the same way, I kind of thought that, but the only reservation I had was the Tory Lanez thing. When the Tory Lanez Megan Thee Stallion shooting happened, or Megan Thee Stallion shooting from Tory Lanez happened, I said the same thing. I was like, was he maybe responsible for lighting a match that caused the argument between Kelsey and Megan that then spilled out onto the street that then led to the fucking shooting? Yes, Tory definitely was. Did he pull out his gun from his waistband, aim it at Megan Thee Stallion's feet, shoot her and say, dance bitch? I don't think so. But I thought at the time, oh, they put too much sauce on it and they're kind of accusing, basically Tory Lanez of attempted murder. I didn't think that was going to run. Obviously, the jury thought different. So that's the only way I was a little bit skeptical, a little bit, I wasn't really sure if I was correct. But as the court case transpired, more evidence was out there. It kind of felt like, they're charging with human trafficking. Like, maybe we have to change the term, the lingo. Maybe that's the problem, because human trafficking sounds intense. Like, when I hear human trafficking, I think of, do you remember that story in the UK of those RIP? I don't know if they're from Philippines or they're from Vietnam, but a bunch of illegal immigrants tried to come into the country, England, and unfortunately they got stuck in a fucking lorry, the truck, and no one opened the door or anything or gave them ventilation, and everyone in there died. Like I think like 50 plus people. The driver went to prison. You know, it was a fucking crazy story. Like I can't imagine what that must have looked like if you're a police officer responding to that call, having to open that fucking cargo container and see all those dead bodies in there. But why did I even mention that? I don't know. Why the fuck I mention that? Cargo container, dead bodies. I don't even know why I mentioned that, to be fair, but still, it popped in my head. What's my train of thought? But yeah, big up the court case, I guess. Big up everybody that kind of tried to put their 10 pence in. I personally think there's more chance of Diddy. At the time, maybe I should have said this because it would have aged well. At the time, I was thinking to myself, there's more chance Diddy gets found guilty later on in the years of maybe being behind the death of Tupac than fucking this sex trafficking thing. It's just, oh yeah, sorry, that's the sex trafficking. So go back to the cargo containers. When all those people died in the cargo containers, that's what I think of human trafficking. I think of that. I think of like people from the third world countries being transported in cargo containers, being sleeping in between fucking wooden pallets, all this sort of horrible shit, hanging underneath fucking lorries, stacked up on some dinghy boat somewhere, like crossing the fucking Atlantic Ocean. Like that's what I think of when I think of human trafficking. But they were trying to make it, and then when I heard that Diddy got charged with it, I was assuming it was like, yeah, Diddy's out here with his fucking IG baddies, these bottle girls and stuff, and he's flying them all around the world. He's got girls coming in from fucking third world countries in South America, like Colombia, Venezuela, Chile and stuff, and they're coming over to get smarted out. But from what I saw, it was just a bunch of girls that Diddy would be into, the kind of Cassie types, right? The Asian, Blasian mixes or whatnot, and some willing participants, like, you know, fucking Young Miami and shit. I didn't really see anything else. So I think they maybe overcooked it with the charges. But the Cassie thing was obviously the worst one. That video is going to haunt a lot of people, I think, especially for people who suffer from domestic violence. They're not going to be able to forget that, you know, that image of seeing Cassie being beaten bloody and blue in that flipping hallway. Thank God there was no noise, by the way. Thank God we didn't hear her screams and shit. And there was no audio recording on it, because that would have definitely been worse. But yeah, apart from that, he bust case for the most part. But I'll talk about it in detail later on. Let's talk a little bit about the Diddy situation. So as you guys know, Diddy got found guilty, not guilty, sorry, of the main 3 charges, which were relating to sex trafficking and shit. I think the ones that he got found guilty for was prostitution regarding Jane Doe and Cassie. But the main ones that he was looking at real fair time were the sex trafficking, and he's been not found guilty on those charges. And I, for one, am not too surprised. I'm not going to lie. I did think the charges against him were relating to sex trafficking, or the charges in general, the Rico especially, were too overcooked. They put a little bit too much salt on the rice for that one, to be honest. I think they probably overestimated the amount of evidence that they had with how it was reading the public, and eventually the jury anyway were able to see through it and see that, you know, Diddy might be a bad person when it comes to how he treated Cassie and other people, but in terms of being this like mastermind, kingpin, sex trafficker, human trafficker person, that's not him, really. I think a lot of people in there were willing participants and stuff, and a lot of some of the debauchery stuff they were going through. And again, just in general, forget what you think. I think the charges brought against him was really hard to kind of say without any doubt that he was who they said he was, prosecution wise. So I guess the jury had to go to a verdict of not guilty. According to a lot of people reports, he was very happy in the courtroom, sorry. He turned around and told his family he'll be home soon. According to this sketch, because there's no cameras allowed in the courtroom, he was on the floor, on his knees, praying, thanking God. I think he hugged someone. I think the guards told him to hug his family, couldn't hug them, but he was really fucking happy, beaming the whole entire time. And yeah, man, I guess he should be, because he fucking beat a Rico. Ricos are not usually things that people beat in court. That's why they usually settle and go for a fucking plea deal. But when they take it to court, I think Ricos have like a 98, 99 conviction rate or something like that. Usually when they come after you, they've got all their dots, their I's and T's crossed, their I's dotted, sorry, their T's crossed. Especially if you'd imagine how fierce, you know, New York courts are as well. So The fact that he won or he beat this Rico says a lot about resources, right? It says a lot about well where this plays in the story. Similar a little bit to Justice Smollett's story. When Justice Smollett was exposed for that elaborate hoax lie thing that he got racially attacked, or he was a victim of a homophobic racial attack in a subway. I think that story proved to us, especially people from the UK and myself who are not in the US, just how important it is to have money and power and status so that you can hire some of the best defense to kind of like argue your case. Because, you know, he was obviously guilty of his crimes and got found not guilty. And I think in Diddy's case, I think he's definitely guilty of some crimes, maybe not the ones that presented, but he also was found not guilty of the main ones. And I think a lot of that comes down to having able to have the resources to afford some of the big lawyers. The Brian Steele guy from Young Thug's case, who helped him beat a Rico, was hired last minute too to help. I heard Tekashi 6ix9ine say on a DJ Academics live stream, which is odd to mention this, but 6ix9ine, when he was in jail recently, he allegedly shared the same prison as SBF, the fucking crypto guy, and Diddy. So they got to talking. So he spoke to Diddy a few times, was around him, and he basically was saying, yeah, Diddy was in a very religious sort of like mode when he's in prison. He was also very basically positive about his chances of beating the case. But I think 6ix9ine mentioned that Diddy told him that he was spending, I think, at least $2 mil a month on lawyers, and it's been what, 10 months or so. So he probably, on top of that, he probably could have spent at least 30 mil on his legal defense, at least 30 mil. So that goes to that's what 30 mil defense gets you. 30 mil defense gets you like 6 of the best or maybe more lawyers working on your case all around the clock, and then eventually getting you a verdict that you probably couldn't have got if you didn't have those lawyers. So that goes to show you just how important it is to have, you know, some ability to kind of pay for some of the best legal defense if you get into this sort of situation. And also it's kind of heartbreaking too, because it shows you the different worlds we live in. If you have money and if you have status, if you have power, your consequences are very different to other people's. You know, the consequences to your actions are very, 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 very different. So that is definitely evident in that regard. Yeah, let's check out some of the articles. Yeah, Paul, there's one from New York Times that headline is how Diddy dodged sex trafficking racketeering charges after feds built a weak case, experts, which is what it was basically. The case was weak. I don't think anyone is doubting that Diddy's a bad dude, but the case they brought against him was definitely not what they were purporting it to be. You know, it was definitely weak, I would imagine. But let's actually quickly check this article out because of the New York Post. They puffed it up. Federal prosecutors overplayed their hand. That's the phrase I think that should be read or said aloud in the next couple of days. The prosecutors definitely overplayed their hand in the Sean Diddy Combs bombshell federal trial by building a case based more on sensationalism with mobster-like charges than a solid legal basis, ultimately leading to a stunning acquittal on Wednesday on one of the most serious charges he faced, legal experts told the Post. Jurors found Diddy, not 55, not guilty of sex trafficking and racketeering charges, while convicting him of lesser prostitution counts. The outcome didn't surprise veteran defense attorney David S. Seltzer, managing partner of Seltzer Mayberg LLC, who said the feds proved that Combs abused women and enjoyed voyeuristic sex, but failed to prove that the mogul's sins and kings were part of a mafia-like criminal enterprise. Exactly. And that's why I said, I think I left a comment on a page recently and I got a lot of hate for it. I got a lot of fucking replies. My mentions were going crazy on Instagram because I basically said I think he's going to walk. Because, you know, I stopped paying attention to the case closely, but I do remember thinking to myself, like, a lot of this stuff is like, it feels like it's a lot of like kink shaming going on, you know? It feels like a lot of people maybe not liking the realities of life for somebody like Diddy who's that involved or that much of an enjoyer of sex, and in those type of, you know, maybe it's not something that you would basically practice yourself, but I didn't necessarily see where the mafia like organized crime Rico thing was. It just seemed like a lot of debauchery, a lot of stuff that you probably wouldn't want your daughters to get involved with, you wouldn't encourage your sister to be involved with. But is it something that would justify him spending 30 plus years in prison for? I don't think so. I think there's more chance you could probably pin, for instance, like the death of Tupac on Diddy than saying that he's this big fucking Black Jeffrey Epstein character. I don't think that's the case, but I could be wrong. Here's an illustration of him in court. Sean Diddy Combs was acquitted. You see him. I think this is when he was acquitted, actually. Looking at his family, sitting behind him and shit, mouthing to him he's going to be home soon. The government's case was weak. From the start, says Seltzer, who wasn't involved in the case, told the Post. They tried to put a square peg in a round hole using mobster-like charges when all they had were glorified state court charges. Prosecutors pursued a racketeer influence and corrupt Rico acts or Rico case against the Bad Boy Records mogul, alleging he used his business empire to conceal sordid crimes, including forcing his girls into deranged drug-filled sex romps he dubbed freak off. So essentially they were able to say he's not guilty charge or verdict was that they don't doubt those things happen. There's accounts of it. People provided testimony of those things happening, but they just don't think he was using his businesses to conceal these things. He was just doing them in his free time. I think whenever they had somebody on the stand that was an employee of his, like his assistant, like quote unquote drug mule guy, it wasn't even that elaborate. It was just he was the assistant and he was hired newly and he wanted to do whatever it took to impress Diddy. So if Diddy told him to go score some stuff, he would score some stuff. If Diddy told him to go hit, I mean, that's what it was essentially. But in the reports on the media, they made it sound like that kid who was the assistant that got arrested, the white kid, they made it seem like he was this fucking, you know, El Chapo kid, you know, in the making. He was fucking, you know, carrying around bricks of fucking 2C and coke and all this, when really it was just Diddy was, you know, reaching out to his assistant to get him some drug, which I'm assuming most assistants do for most celebrities. I'm assuming most celebrity assistants have bought some drugs or two for their celebrity clients. It's just the nature of the game. But then they tried to use that as a thing that he was involved in illegal crime, illegal gang organization, whatever, used his funds of his business. It's like, come on. That was a bit of a stretch. And again, I'm sure there's a reason for it. I'm not too smart to fucking figure this stuff out, especially not fucking, you know, Monday morning quarterback style. I'm sure there was a rationale for them pursuing the Rico, but I think the Rico in that angle was just a little bit over-egged, a little bit overcooked, a little bit of a reach, dare I say. Because they could have probably got him on some other stuff relating to like violence against women, as we've seen with Cassie. I don't know if that would have stuck in court, whatever. But the whole Rico thing was a bit too much. Defense attorney and former prosecutor Nima Rahmani agreed that the outcome hinged on how prosecutors could prove he ran a criminal enterprise. Like I've said all along, this case will come down to racketeering. If the government doesn't get a RICO conviction, this will be a huge loss and the most expensive prostitution trial in American history. During the sensational 2-month trial, Combs' former girlfriends, Cassie and a woman only identified as Jane, testified they were coerced into distributing free cops with escorts. By the way, I wonder if he knows now who his real friends are, Diddy. I wonder if Diddy's now aware that all those people that he made deals for, he put on Revolt, people that he got Ciroc deals for, people that he gave money to, put on albums, gave them their first placements, all those people never turned up for him or defended him in public. The only person that really defended him in public, a prominent artist, was Ye. I know Ye's not the best person to defend you and stuff, and they had their own little beef, but Ye went to court. Ye actually went to court and was there with Diddy, like defended him, kind of stood there. He wasn't there for too long. I think he appeared and quickly went away, maybe just to show off his fit and his weight loss and stuff. But he was there. Ye's a real friend. Like, you know, love it, hate or love it, Ye's actually a real fucking friend. He showed up for the guy when he actually needed. I'm sure behind the scenes, even, you know, he probably didn't have a lot of people reaching out. There probably were a lot of people returning his phone calls. Like, I wonder if now someone like a Diddy, would he let bygones be bygones and just be like, yeah, that's the game, I don't take it personally? Or will he now move differently in terms of having a gaggle of people around him all trying to suck from his clout? Because a lot of people were very quick to distance themselves from him when the allegations came out. And I think it was really weird because I think a lot of the people who did distance themselves from him publicly were the ones that you would assume were involved in the freak offs. So it's like, how dare you? If you weren't involved at all and you were just in there for the music and the business, I get it. Save your career, whatever. But if you were there for the freak offs, you're a bit of a piece of shit if you're now distancing yourself from him now that he's under fucking arrest and now he's in, you know, he's on trial. It's like, come on, man, have some loyalty, man. Have a little bit of loyalty for people that are gonna hold you down. But anyway, who knows? Who knows? Maybe it's a bit harder when you're there. But Nicole Berenick, what's that? Nicole Brenick, Nicole Brinicky, a New York trial attorney, said the testimony indicated that Combs' ex-girlfriends appeared to have willingly taken part in freak-offs. Exactly, especially during the voluntary participation, no matter how controversial, doesn't equal organized crime, says Brinicky. The prosecution's case fell apart because it was built more on sensationalism than a solid legal case, Bernicki opined. Rico charges require proof of ongoing criminal enterprise with coordinated activity by multiple actors, not just deviant parties and disgruntled ex-girlfriends. Exactly. That's the thing that I didn't really get from the prosecution's case against Diddy. It didn't really feel like it was an ongoing criminal enterprise with coordinated activity. It just felt like one guy that was very horny and a bit of a party, not a bit of a party boy, a super party boy, turbo party boy, you know, who had endless means and resources to fulfill his every fantasy doing so. It didn't feel like somebody that was trafficking people in from third world countries it didn't feel like that whatsoever. Even all the freak of videotaping, filming stuff, it felt like, oh yeah, just him filming stuff to get his fucking rocks off, you know? Here's a picture of somebody outside the courtroom with a t-shirt that says a Rico is not a Rico, which is a fucking crazy t-shirt to wear, to be honest. Add to the lack of paper trails, cooperating witnesses inside the alleged enterprise, quote unquote, and any other hierarchy of criminal role, you're left with a smoke, but no fire, and not guilty verdict follows. David Schwartz, a New York City-based trial attorney and former prosecutor, agreed that the prosecution charges were the strongest. The case was overcharged, and the jury got this one exactly right. Yep, okay. What she said here, Sean Diddy's Trump's trial. Here's some major, of course, we saw the major moments. We know what going here, right? Cassie accuses Diddy in November. I wonder if Diddy actually regrets paying her. I don't think he should, because I think the whole reason why he had to pay her anyway was because, if you believe the stories, Cassie went to his team, or Cassie's team went to Diddy's team before the story came out, or before the lawsuit, and said, hey, I'm going to write a book, you're going to be in it, and I'm going to basically expose what went down. And Diddy refused to pay. I think at that point it was 10 mil. Then obviously the fucking story comes out, the lawsuit comes out, and then suddenly everything's out there and open, and Diddy immediately pays the 30 mil like the next day, right, to settle it. So I wonder if he regrets it, paying it, because she then still went and got on a stand and fucking gave evidence. You know what I mean? You got paid 30 mil and you still gave evidence. And I wonder if he regrets it also, the experience with Cassie, because he got a super young, essentially, there was a bit of obviously she was willing participant, but there was a lot of grooming involved there, because she was super fresh in the industry. At the time, I think she confessed that in court that she didn't even know how to perform oral sex. So she was very sexually inexperienced. So she went from that all the way to having multiple freak-offs and stuff, which eventually, I guess, led to a good resolution, because she met her husband in the freak-off, which is a really sordid, twisted part of the story, right? One of the fucking male escorts that were gangbanging Cassie ended up being her husband, and now father of her 3 children, which I guess is a good way to kind of cap off a really tragic situation. But yeah, I wonder if Diddy regrets paying her that money. But yeah, you see the timeline there. 2023, November 26th, Cassie accuses Diddy. Another woman comes forward November 23rd, 2023. Diddy gets sued by a third accuser. Hotel video comes out May 2024. That feels like just the other day, innit? That was really brutal, bro. You know what is interesting? I feel like, for me personally, being a Diddy fan, I feel like that video did way more damage to how I see Diddy than the actual allegations. I think when I saw the video, the image of it, it's hard to get that out of your head. It's hard to look at Diddy the same way. When you see the video of him stomping, kicking, dragging Cassie down that fucking hotel hallway, it's hard to look at him the same way again. You're like, okay, cool, you're full of complete shit. All the fucking name changes, all this love shit, all this whatever. I was really looking at him a little bit skeptical hippo eyes when the whole Tupac thing was going down, right? Where people were kind of giving evidence and floating the story or the conspiracy theory that Diddy was somewhat involved in the death of Tupac. Like, that already was making me look at him funny. The death of Kim Porter, so many people around him have died essentially. It's like, there's something going on with this guy, man. He's a bit crazy, a bit unhinged. So that made me feel a little bit weird. So I think for a lot of people, myself included, that hotel video was that was a lot, man. That was a lot. And you have to give Cassie a lot of credit, man. She held that guy down, man. She kept his secret. She never said anything before the lawsuit came out. and I think she deserves every fucking penny of that 30 mil and some. You know, she kept her mouth shut for a very long period of time, too long actually, but obviously spoke out and put a brave face on it, and I think probably encouraged a lot of people to also kind of feel free to speak out too. And yeah, man, she deserves every penny of it. That video was fucking hard to watch, very troubling, especially when you think about if Diddy was able to do that in the camera in the hotel hallway. Imagine what he was doing in private, away from all the hotel cameras. Just imagine, just fucking imagine. And then of course Diddy was arrested September 16, 2004. Allegedly when he was arrested, they said he was arrested and he had a lot of like drugs on him. He had money on him. He looked like he was on his way to organize another freak off. So even though he was under criminal investigation and shit, and all the videos came out, he was still doing what he was doing, you know. So he was probably in the throes of that addiction. I wonder if this time in jail, not being on drugs, being somewhat sober, has helped to clear his mind, and whether or not we'll see a more calm, level-headed, measured, introspective Diddy, and less of the hedonistic shit. Or will he just be outside still fucking shaking his rumper in fucking Ibiza? I wonder, man. I'm really, really curious to see what's going to happen. I'm sure some people are going to be on his fucking bumper anyway, because some people are going to be super happy to see him out and want to be a part of the future freakos. But I wonder if we're going to see a change in behavior from him outwardly anyway, at least in the media or in public. Obviously the jury is set, other timelines. Let's read the rest of the article. Combs' defense. Actually, you see the Kanye thing. Yeah, Kanye makes a surprise appearance. Kanye was the only high-profile supporter of Diddy's, I think, at the court. I don't think anybody else came through, from what I can remember. Maybe G-Dep. I think that's it. I don't think there's anyone super famous that came. Combs' defense team, by contrast, owned the bad facts in the case, and it paid off for the hip-hop mogul, says Anna Kominsky. This trial was a major gamble, and Combs won that bet. Everything was stacked against the defendant going into the federal case, in particular one like this. His attorneys were smart and they owned the bad facts. They fought on the things that mattered, and it paid off. the baby oil shop, man. The baby oil Astroglide stuff is gonna follow him to the day he dies, and no one's ever gonna forget that. That was one of the most alarming, funny things to kind of hear, innit? The fucking baby oil situation. Like, Jesus Christ. Jesus fucking Christ. So much baby oil. So much Astroglide. And allegedly the baby oil was just used to kind of, because you like people to look shiny. And then I think the Astroglide obviously is a proper lubricant. But I think the baby oil they're saying was just because you like people to look slippery. And of course, here's a picture of Cassie with bruising on her face after being beaten. Packets of Tusi, which I think Diddy has done instrumentable good for Tusi, the brand of Tusi. He's definitely propelled it into the zeitgeist, into the consciousness of the general public, and definitely added a bit of hype to it. People now are like taking Tusi a lot outside. Trust me, I've been out and I'm seeing a lot more people with little baggies of pink stuff in their pockets. So I think Diddy did a good job promoting that stuff like that. It's fucking wild to say, but I think he definitely did help with that. The Federal Prosecution Office that oversaw Combs' case released a statement on Wednesday that sex crimes deeply scar victims, without commenting directly on the verdict. Sex crimes deeply scarring victims, disturbing realities that sex crimes are too present in many aspects of society. Victims endure gut-wrenching physical and mental abuse, leading to lasting trauma. The statement did not directly address the jury's decision to acquit Combs on more serious racketeering charges. So yeah, he's gonna be sentenced soon. His bail got denied. I think that's the latest update. His bail did get denied because, of course, he still got found guilty on 2 charges, so it was unlikely to get approved. So his bail has been denied. That's the last thing I heard. Actually, let me double check here. Let's see. Yeah, Diddy denied bail while awaiting sentencing on 2 lesser convictions. Music mogul Diddy is denied bail and will remain in custody after he was found not guilty of racketeering and sex trafficking. Diddy's mammoth trial draws to a close after 8 weeks of the trial. After 8 weeks of a trial and faithful witnesses, Diddy Combs' criminal case is drawing to a close. The verdict has been reached. Combs is guilty of transportation for prostitution of ex-girlfriends Cassie and Jane, and not guilty of more serious charges of racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking. Judge Aaron Subramani denied him bail.
Supporters waiting to see him walk out of court were left disappointed and will be returning to a Brooklyn jail. He now faces 20 years in prison and expected to be sentenced on the 3rd of October. Oh, still a long time, innit? I guess he's happy. I guess it's probably a much different stay now in jail, knowing that you're not guilty of the more serious crimes of racketeering and sex trafficking. But being in there until October is like, oh, that's like what? July, August, September, October, 4 months. Brutal. Not including whatever he will get in sentencing. I heard some people say he might get a year, and then obviously there'll be time served, so you get that straight away. But I don't know. That's still a long fucking time, and they're saying he faces 20 years in this article. If you see, the last few weeks we have witnessed a gradual undoing of one of hip hop's biggest icons taking a stand, where his ex-girlfriends Cassie Ventura and Anonymous Jane, who said that they were physically brutalized and forced into sex acts by Combs. We also heard from celebrities like Kid Cudi and Dawn Richard. Others still, hotel workers, assistants, and makeup artists, say that they found themselves wrapped up in this world. The rapper had admitted to domestic violence, but always denied any non-consensual sexual encounters or larger racketeering. Exactly, and that's the thing that I think a lot of people leave. Like, remember, he was getting accused of a lot of like R-word, isn't it? Like grape stuff, and so far we've not seen any evidence of that. So far, we've heard of him being very kinky, very freaky, very horny, but not so much the force stuff. So I guess that's one thing that is probably a positive on his side of things. He's not going to remember like that, but I still think the damage of that Cassie tape will never leave him. His reputation and his name has been sullied forever. No matter how much of a win this is, I don't think it actually is a win in the long term, because, you know, everyone now knows your deepest, darkest secrets, and, you know, it is kind of what it is. Combs is relieved, says Sean Combs' lawyer following his he's thankful and relieved. The jurors saw through the overzealous and kind of crazy prosecution and did the right thing by acquitting him on the 2 serious charges. This was a colossal failure by the prosecution. Jesus, they're really drumming it home. Combs has a lot of time to reflect while in jail, and he's in a good place mentally, despite true. He should be in a good space, because that's a really good fucking result for him. How long could Diddy be sentenced for? How long for the 2 prostitution convictions? Combs could face a maximum of 10-year sentence for each count, but that doesn't necessarily mean he will spend 20 years in prison, says Jennifer Bidell, a criminal defense attorney. If you're convicted of 2 similar charges, the judge will run them together, usually, unless there's some aggravating factor. The judge says a lot of discretion that will likely take into account for the relevant criminal history. If I had to guess, it would be in the neighborhood of 2 years that would run concurrently with each other. Combs has been in jail since the 16th of September 2024, and the time spent in detention will be subtracted from the final sentence. If Combs is deemed to be behaved well while in jail, he could get a good credit, which will result in a further 15% sentence shaved off. Ultimately, Beadle says no one can accurately estimate at this point, obviously, because the rest of the judge who hasn't made the decision yet, so it's premature. Shit. His legal ordeals are far from over. This article says the federal criminal trial may be over, but the hip-hop mogul was found guilty of serious offences, but that doesn't mean the legal battles are entirely finished. The rapper faces a slew of criminal lawsuits filed across the country. Tony Busby, a Houston-based personal injury lawyer, says he's written. Yeah, by the way, what happened to all those charges? What happened to that hotline? Remember they had that big press conference where they said, "Oh, there's a big hotline. Call this number if Diddy fucked you over, if Diddy did something to you." What happened to all those people? See, he represents 150 clients in lawsuits against rap star. His clients were not named in the victims of Combs' criminal trial. Busby's clients accused Combs of a wider range of offences, including allegedly drugging, sexually assaulting them. Some of the allegations date back to the 1980s. Our cases instead are focused on the discrete wrongful conduct allegedly committed by Combs. Now that this spectacle is over, we look forward to aggressively pursuing these civil cases to obtain Jesus Christ. So now he's going to be attacked in the civil courts. It's not going to end, is it? It's not going to end. 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 It's not going to fucking end. Which I guess makes sense because, you know, there's a serious allegations. Let's kind of check out some tweets before we continue here. This is from Megan Cuniff. This is a letter from Cassie to the judge, basically asking that Diddy doesn't get released on bail, which is a pretty crazy letter to write, to be fair, but yeah, she definitely hates that guy. Cassie allegedly wrote to the judge and said, "Dear Judge," or Cassie's team, I guess, "we write on the counsel of Cassie to respectfully request that the court deny Mr. Combs to be released pending his sentencing on 2 convictions pursuant of the Bail Reform Act. Detention is mandatory post-conviction of these charges, and Ms. Ventura believes that Mr. Combs is likely to pose a danger to victims who testified in the case, including herself, as well as the community. We find the court for his time and attention respectfully submitted. Rated. So yeah, I'm guessing that obviously helped, but I'm assuming he probably was never going to grant him bail because he still got found guilty of 2 charges. If you got acquitted of all 5, fair enough, but you still got found guilty of 2, and they're pretty serious ones as well. And you already was a slight flight risk before with the money and the flying around. Because I still think he was on the run. I think he wanted to bail, but then his lawyers convinced him to stay. Remember, I think he was on his plane. He went to Miami or somewhere. I think he was half in the mind of going somewhere, but he stayed. Pick up the stream chat. I had to leave. Why is not on the floor? He beat the Rico murder and neglects. Maybe the 4th time is a charm. Big up Purple Page. I thought the Juicy got sent down. Did I get that wrong? Big up Younger Babs. Can we not say gang? Big up Dundota. I'm half convinced that Brian still can even get Lil Durk acquitted. No, I don't think so. Those are sex crimes have there's a bit of a interpretation, he said, she says sort of thing. When it comes to violent stuff and gun crime, I think he's done. Those are pretty black and white. I don't think Lil Durk's getting off that. If Brian still gets Lil Durk off that Rico, that's like he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. But I don't think so. I think unfortunately Rico's done for. I think so. Durk is done for, unfortunately. Free Durk, but I think he's done for. This is a video of Diddy's family leaving the court room, looking very, 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 very happy as they leave, actually, which again, you can't blame them considering all they've been through, but kind of tasteless when you think about the things that Diddy was accused of. But hey, I guess when it's your dad, it's your dad.
Okay, here they come, y'all.
And get crazy.
Here they come.
Here comes the family.
How you feeling, Janice? How you feeling?
Smiling.
How you guys feeling?
Guys, oh, look at the smile.
Diddy's mum waving to the crowd, laughing. Justin Combs smiling. Everyone's smiling.
Look at the smile.
The twins smiling.
Twins. How you guys
Look at the twins. Look how you guys feeling.
Oh wow, Raven's there as well. Raven attended the court case. Everyone looks like they're smiling and happy.
Whoa, there you go, guys. How you guys feeling? How you guys feeling?
Dana, why you crying?
I don't know. I think the family have come out of this looking not that great. I know they're supporting their dad and shit, but I think the family's like unwitting, whatever support for Diddy has been a little bit unsettling to watch, especially when you consider what he's been accused of, like the violence and the crimes against women. Like a lot of those accusations were, there was a lot of really dark shit that he was accused of, and the fact that his family were behind him every step of the way, I guess they had to be. He's the main breadwinner. He looks after fucking everybody. If he goes down, the whole family goes down. But I wonder if the family's reputation has been somewhat sullied by this whole entire case. I wonder if it has, or people maybe see through and understand that no, that's their dad. Of course they're gonna support him. I don't know. I just think with the severity of the accusations and the whatever else, and the stories and all these other accounts and stuff from other people that work, I don't know. It just felt very distasteful to see them, being with him, supporting him, especially Christian Combs. He's been really rubbing it in and lauding all the attention. He's been loving every minute of it. Another video here. This features Christian Combs dancing outside of the courtroom in his SUV with his girlfriend Raven Tracy, who's funny enough the ex-girlfriend of or ex-fiance of Ian Connor, who's accused of his own, slew of grapes and stuff allegedly. By the way, that's crazy luck, innit? That's crazy fucking list of like boyfriends or partners. To be Ian Connor and then the next guy you get with is fucking Diddy's son. Off the back of all that shit, it's like, ooh, interesting choice. Obviously he's not Diddy, don't get me wrong, but it's still fucking interesting. Christian Combs has been super cringy about this whole thing. I think he released a rap tune recently too, talking mad shit. Like, I don't know. He's been very forceful in his defense of his dad. Really fucking let these nuts hang. Essentially calling out all the fucking victims, saying everything was kind of from what I kind of gleaned from the raps. Basically saying everything was substantial, everything was fun, people turned their backs on it. You know what I mean? It's been very distasteful, very uncomfortable to kind of watch, but I get it. Again, it's your dad. But I'm curious to see what he will end up saying post release of his father and shit, or maybe he'll say something before he gets released. But yeah, he's out here and, you know, on the streets of NYC, outside the courtroom, dancing, having a good time and celebrating the fact that his dad is probably not going to be in prison for 30+ years.
Everybody watching. God bless. God bless.
He's doing push-ups.
Switching it up. I pick you up like this drink in my cup. Ass so fast, she toss it, make it jump. She throw it back, got me dropping my blunt. I get paid in the sun. Pull up, pump the whip in the front.
I'm so happy for you.
Thank you so much.
So happy. Big fan from Sweden.
Thank you.
Fair play. Some person saying they're big fans and they're happy that his father's been not found guilty.
Appreciate all the love. Diddy's free, let's go. Diddy's free. Spread the word.
How are you feeling?
Great.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's one of them. Another video quickly show you that features a guy with those a Rico is not a Rico t-shirts. I'm not sure if he's the one that made them. Again, some of the people outside the courtroom were fucking special, very, very special.
Best friend.
Hold that up for me and kind of explain why you're giving those out. What made you want to do that?
Oh, he's giving them out. He's not even selling them. He's giving them out for free. A Rico is not a Rico. Okay.
Honestly, the shirt and stuff is explanatory, right? So he's in here for doing this, right? But they're trying to make you think that he's in there for this. A Rico is not a Rico. What you're doing in your own bedroom is not against the law, right? He's making porn tapes with his girlfriend, consenting porn tapes. Now, some people might call it, oh, that's immoral. Well, a lot of stuff that we do, you're not gonna like, I'm not gonna like some things that you do, but it's my personal business, right? So for example, I have a transgender child, right? My child is going from male to female. I'm a single dad raising my transgender, right? You got some people that will say, well, how can you, that's my child. My love don't have an expiration date.
And is Diddy supportive of your child?
Jesus, that's definitely so weird, isn't it? Such a weird, broken, backwards, ghetto way to explain or make sense of your kids being trans. Like, what does your kid have being trans have to do with Diddy being accused of rape and sex trap? Like, what? Fucking hell, man. Like, okay, bro.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's the yeah. Why wouldn't he be? That's his niece. Why wouldn't he be? Best friend.
Hold that up for me.
Okay, cool. Weird dude. God bless his transgender child, by the way. Another clip here featuring some of the freaks outside the courtroom, covering themselves in baby oil in celebration of Diddy being found not guilty of the more serious charges. I don't know what this is all about, but yeah, don't get me wrong. Some of these people featured in this video are like trolls and stuff. They're not really, you know, they're sort of like courtroom ambulance chasers in a way and whatever, just attention seekers. But it's still a fucking weird fucking scene.
I don't know what she gonna do, y'all.
Harmon Wingeds is there too. That really crazy lady in America with the blue wig that screams and shouts everywhere. She's also there. Takes off her wig. She's twerking, covering herself in baby oil. Fuck, I don't know what's going on, man. So fucking weird. Another clip that features Aubrey Day, who was meant to actually testify, but then I think went against it or changed her mind last minute. She reacts to the verdict. Let's hear what she has to say.
Cassidy Ventura, so that is obviously
Big up Jordan Ray, black excellence. No, don't say that. Don't say that.
an enormous win.
Oh
for the
my
defense. It means
God.
the jury did not
Not
credit
guilty on Cassie,
Ventura's
not guilty
testimony.
on
It's a
Rico.
huge blow
No
to
way
Cassie.
that Jane is going to be guilty.
There was the video, of course, where he was.
Oh,
beating
this
her
makes
up
me
in the
physically
hotel
ill.
Lobby.
Sure.
And you know the prosecution strategy with showing that video, or with knowing that video was going to be shown to the jury, was well, domestic abuse.
Wolf
did
is
happen.
silent.
They said, look, domestic abuse happened, but
Wolf
there
is
was no sex
silent.
Right.
There was no racketeering, and it seems like the jury.
If we're talking about count 2 here, the forcible sex trafficking of Cassie Ventura, that means the jury has concluded there was
Cassie
force
probably
or
feels so
fraud or
horrible.
coercion involved in that. It could still be that the jury finds,
Ronnie.
yes, a person
I'm gonna
was
vomit.
moved across state lines for the purpose of prostitution. Yes. That's count 3.
Okay, I'm
which
getting
maybe
some
we
other
have a
news.
verdict.
Oh, please.
Sex trafficking of Jane, I'm told in my ear, not guilty.
Okay.
Boozy reacting to the news. I'm sure this is going to be very level-headed, very compassionate to the victims, very understanding. I'm sure this is not going to be very toxic. I'm sure, right? I'm sure Booty's not going to be very, very toxic in his response to Diddy being found not guilty of the most serious charges in terms of sex trafficking. I'm sure.
Man, I'm so glad Diddy free, bro. You know, the reason is because I'm tired of seeing us black moguls get took down like that, bro. Like, and I'm tired of seeing us black people go against us black moguls like that. And I feel like if Diddy was a white man who done all this shit for people, you know, I know he ain't paid people, but if he done all this shit for hip hop, if he was white, they would have had so many white people out there protesting for this man losing his life behind a relationship, you know. And people always, Boosie was on Diddy's side. Nah, it ain't that. It's because I'm thinking about 7 children. Y'all thinking about one person. I'm thinking about these 7 kids who been in my kid's position. Not knowing if your daddy gonna come home or not is a burden on the child. So all y'all was like, no, I'm thinking about them damn children, man. So, man, I'm glad he free, bro. You know, like I've been said, I don't feel he was guilty of nothing. You know, nothing but domestic violence. You know.
Is that okay then? Is he just excusing the domestic violence part? Just skipping over the domestic violence part is perfectly okay. It's perfectly reasonable to jump on your woman's head in the fucking hallway and shit. This guy's a wild guy, man.
But the court spoke, man, and man, I'm happy that dude children, man. I know his feeling right now, bro. I'm just happy for them children, man. So, you know, Diddy, sit your ass down somewhere. That's what you need to do. Grab Stevie J and your children and get the fuck on.
Okay. There's Boosie's great opinion there regarding the verdict. Then we've got a video here circulating of Diddy's former girlfriend, Gina. That's one of the people that was meant to testify, but she changed her mind lastminute.com. That's one of the people. Yeah. Cool. Then we've got another clip here featuring Young Miami from City Girls, posting a clip of Justin Bieber doing the clock it thing, right? In response to the Diddy verdict, which some people didn't receive too well. People are really not happy about this. Young Miami was always going to be excited though, isn't it? She was always going to be happy that Diddy got found not guilty of the most serious charges, because she's definitely going to be the one that he'll probably go to first when he comes out. Because she, you know, she didn't get subpoenaed, I know, but she probably should have been subpoenaed. I'm so surprised that she was never subpoenaed or got in trouble, because she was the last confirmed public relationship that Diddy was in. She was threatening other girls with violence, basically, on behalf of Diddy, kind of. But she never got arrested for anything. I always wonder how she kind of got away with that. Very strange, especially when you consider that she was accused of transporting drugs from certain places for Diddy during the free call. I don't know. It's all strange. But regardless, she held it down, kind of. Didn't really say too much about Diddy. Didn't publicly disavow him or anything. So I'm assuming when he comes out, he's probably going to reward her for her loyalty and her silence, and probably give her, give us a bunch of money. So she's probably going to be in a good place soon. So I get why she's doing this. It's not the nicest thing to see. Maybe if you're a victim of domestic violence or abuse in general, you know, it definitely doesn't need to be said that JT probably Young Miami, sorry, isn't a girl's girl. You'd imagine by doing this type of thing, but hey, I guess everyone has to look out for their own personal thing. And yeah, that's basically it for the most part. And I think there's another update as well, video wise, of the family leaving the courtroom not looking too happy.
How are you guys feeling?
How are you feeling? Is this disappointing?
Definitely a big change of mood, isn't it? Since Jesus Christ, Ravens, back off. Fuck, you know. Definitely a big change in atmosphere and feeling and vibe when the bail got denied vis-a-vis what we saw before, innit? Fucking Christian Combe doing press-ups, dancing in the street, the family all smiling, giggling. Now they definitely look completely different, very somber, stone faces, because, you know, prison, jail is jail, isn't it? So if you get sent, I think I saw a clip here or a news article that says they're suggesting 4 years in prison. So I guess we'll have to wait until October to find out exactly what the fucking ruling will be. But it doesn't look like it'll be a short amount of time. He definitely will do some amount of time in prison, but it will definitely be shorter than the 30 plus years he was facing, or 30 to life actually he was facing with those other serious charges. So I guess there is a little silver line there for him in that regard. I guess there is.